I remember the day they cast me out like a pariah. My mother's voice, shrill and cutting, echoed in my mind like a death knell. "You'll lose your mind. You'll disgrace the family," she screamed, her eyes ablaze with the shame of my obsession. I had been expelled from the medical school, not for lack of knowledge, but for daring to speak the truth about the outbreak that swept through our town. A cursed plant, they said, unearthed during construction, a remnant of the past that should never have seen the light of day. They called me insane, delusional, and I was left to wander the shadowy corners of my own mind, clutching the remnants of my research like a lifeline. I was an outcast, but I turned that rejection into my purpose. I dove headfirst into forbidden ethnobotany, scouring the forgotten archives of our town's history, unraveling the threads of folk remedies that had long been dismissed as mere superstition. I became a ghost in a world that had turned its back on me, a scholar of shadows, and with every secret I unearthed, I felt the weight of the darkness pressing against me, urging me to share the truths others chose to ignore. Years passed in a blur of discovery and despair, and as I pieced together the tapestry of ancient rituals and remedies, I earned a grim recognition in the underbelly of academia. I was no longer the fool they had dismissed. I was a warning. Those who had once laughed at me now whispered my name in hushed tones, fearful of the knowledge I carried. I had seen things, confronted horrors that twisted the very fabric of reality. I had survived where others had not, and in that survival, I found a dark power. But now it was time to return home. The weight of my family's scorn still lingered, a bitter taste in my mouth as I pulled into the driveway of the house that had once been my prison. The air was thick with an uneasy tension, the kind that clings to the skin like a warning. They had no idea what awaited them. The moment I stepped inside, I felt the familiar suffocation of their judgment. My father, a man once so proud, looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and regret. My mother's eyes darted away, as if she could unsee the person I had become. But I was no longer the trembling child begging for acceptance. I was a vessel of dark knowledge. And I intended to show them. "Why are you here?" my father finally croaked, his voice trembling as he tried to mask the fear that crept into his words. "You're not welcome here." "Not welcome?" I chuckled, the sound hollow and eerie. "You invited me here with your laughter, your scorn. You wanted me to prove I was mad. Well, I've come to show you just how right I am." I produced a small vial from my coat, a dark liquid swirling within, shimmering like a starless night. "This is the essence of the cursed plant. Its properties are powerful, but it demands a price, a bargain with the darkness." My heart raced as I watched their expressions shift from disbelief to horror. They had said I was insane, and yet here I stood, a testament to the very truths they had ridiculed. "What have you done?" my mother gasped, her voice barely more than a whisper, her face paling as she stepped back, her fear palpable. "Open your eyes, Mother," I shouted, the desperation clawing at my throat. "This world is riddled with curses and bargains. You mocked me. You thought I was mad. Yet the horrors I faced were very real. You need to understand the weight of your disbelief." At that moment, the shadows in the room began to shift, coiling like serpents around us. The air thickened, an oppressive force that made it hard to breathe. I had called upon something dark, something that had lingered in the corners of my research, and now it was here, manifesting in the very room that had once held my shame. My family recoiled, their faces a mix of terror and regret, as a low, guttural growl echoed from the depths of the shadows. I felt a thrill of power rush through me, a vindication of all I had endured. I had survived the darkness. I had become one with it. "Do you see?" I whispered, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and elation. "This is what you dismissed. This is what I became. I am the warning you never heeded." The darkness coalesced, forming into a shape that loomed over us, a grotesque version of the very plant I had studied. Its tendrils reached out, brushing against my skin, a reminder of the price I had paid and the knowledge I now bore. My family's faces twisted in horror as they realized the cost of their disbelief. "Please," my father begged, his voice cracking. "Please, we didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I replied, my heart heavy with a mix of pity and vindication. "And now you must live with the consequences." In that moment, the shadows surged forward, wrapping around my family, pulling them into the depths of their own ignorance. Their screams echoed in the room, a haunting melody that filled the air with a dreadful finality. I had become the very thing they feared. And in that transformation, I felt a sense of release. As the darkness receded, I stood alone in the silence, the weight of my family's scorn replaced by a chilling sense of triumph. They would never again mock the knowledge I carried, for they had witnessed firsthand the horrors I had faced. I had become a guardian of the truths they had chosen to ignore, a living testament to the power of belief and the consequences of disbelief. And as I stepped back into the world, I knew I would carry the echoes of their fear with me, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of understanding. I had survived, but at what cost? The shadows whispered around me, and I welcomed them with open arms, knowing that I was forever changed.